When we talk about sadaqah or charity, most of the time money would come first in mind. However, Islam widens the scope to multiple things as well. In Islam, giving good words or good advice is also considered as a charity. Delivering a smile to others or making an action to remove obstacles in between the road is also a charity of Islam. In addition, Allah mentions in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 215, they ask you, O Muhammad, what they should spend. Say, whatever you spend of good is to be for parents and relatives and orphans and the needy and the traveler. And whatever you do of good, indeed Allah is knowing of it. From this surah alone, Allah mentions those five needy group deserve our spending on them, which are parents and relatives and orphans and the needy and the traveler. We are expected to begin giving charity to our dependents following the hadith from Sahih Muslim 1036. Begin by giving to your dependents, for the upper hand is better than the lower hand. Now let's talk about the sadaqah in education form. As we all know, we are currently experiencing no face-to-face socializing in the education industry. Teachers and students cannot go to their schools and college to have a normal teaching session, and they are using the ODL, which means open and distance learning, to carry on with all the syllabuses. Giving free education to the students is also considered as a giving sadaqah. Spreading knowledge is highly rewarded in Islam, and as Muslims, we are responsible for sharing the correct knowledge of Islam and for inviting others into the faith. One of the providers that we can look is at Khan Academy. Everyone from around the world can access the website and do the learning session by watching all the recorded lectures, and there are also a few questions for them to have a better understanding. The Khan Academy, which features more than 3,400 short instructional videos along with the interactive quizzes and tools for the teachers to chart student progress, is a non-profit boasting a mission of a free world-class education for anyone, anywhere. As one of our group members, Sister Shakira, have said, I really have a good understanding by watching those Khan Academy videos that are related to calculation. It actually helped me a lot to travel through my first semester in my university. The next thing that we can do as Sadaqah is by giving places to refugees to stay. Malaysia alone has over 28 million refugees. Malaysia has not enacted domestic legislation recognizing the position of legal status of the asylum seekers, refugees, and stateless persons. However, it permits UNHCR, which is an UN refugee agency, to register, determine status, and supply assistance to this population. Most of the refugees are residing in urban areas, which Kuala Lumpur that holds the largest number, the Klang and Penang. For some places, they need to cram in a small place, such as 30 people in a small house. They are basically building their own village in Malaysia. And not to forget, there are a few NGOs who take care of their welfare for them to live harmoniously in this country. Without skills for lifelong learning, these children will be facing greater barriers to earning potential and employment later in life. With all the growing technologies, everyone should have a proper education in order to improve their lives. No one should be left behind for any reason.
Yes, no one should be left behind for any reasons.
Kibarkan bendera putih bagi membantu rakyat yang terjejas akibat wabak COVID-19. Ini berikutan situasi rakyat yang semakin tertekan dari sudut ekonomi bagi menampung kehidupan harian.
During the COVID-19 lockdown period, Malaysians had to go through a white flag movement, a movement which started in saving Malaysians that were going through days without enough financial and food supply. Households that needed financial or food aids would put up white flags at their houses in hopes those who saw those flags will deliver some help. Seeing this, Reza Fahmi Razali, A local website developer managed to form a team to develop a website and an application within a very short time called kitajaga.co, which means we care, for free in spreading the movement across the country. Many received help from the website and the application, and many lended a hand through the website and that application too. His gesture is considered as a sadaqah, which in return many were inspired to give sadaqah along too. Near the end of 2021, Malaysia was hit by the flood calamity. Many states were submerged by the heavy floods for days, which affected thousands of households across the country. A young man called Azwan Omar was nicknamed as Abang Viva in Malay, which means Viva brother, due to his kind action to save the flood victims. Azwan Omar was not a wealthy man. He came from a humble background, but his heart was flooded with good intentions. Having only 50 ringgit in his hands, he drove his mini Viva car together with his newly bought boat to save the stranded flood victims. In realizing a sadaqah, Islam doesn't put money as the prerequisite, but with a good intention accompanied by a good action, it is also considered as a sadaqah.
In terms of giving, sadaqah and zakat play major roles in Islam. However, are they the same thing? Should we consider both sadaqah and zakat as the same thing? No, we shouldn't. In fact, there are huge differences between those two. Zakat is an obligation in Islam. It is embedded in the pillars of Islam, which is on the third pillar, the fundamental values that build up an individual's iman or faith. Muslims are obliged to pay zakat yearly, which is 2.5% out of his or her prescribed form of surplus wealth to the needy and vulnerable. Zakat is also calculated based on certain percentages on different things mentioned in the Quran and Hadith, such as income, gold and silver, jewelry, crops, livestock, etc. Alongside of that, if a Muslim fails to perform zakat, the Muslim will be held accountable and punished on the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has warned those who neglect their duty to pay zakat. He said, "Those who hoard up treasures of gold and silver and spend them not in the way of Allah, give them the news of a painful punishment on the day when that wealth will be heated in the fire of hell, and with it will be branded their forehead, their side, and their back. And it will be said to them, This is the treasure which you hoarded for yourselves. Now taste of what you used to hoard." On the other hand, the sadaqah concept is equal to offering charity voluntarily without expecting something in return. Sadaqah also doesn't require any percentage from people's wealth, as it is depending fully on us. No matter how much we want to donate, it is still sadaqah in Islam. On the other side of note, the action of sadaqah not always can be shown by giving money, but its concept is even wider, where we can practice sadaqah. As simple as showing a smiling face to people we meet or visit our friends that are sick.
Unfortunately, in 2022, poverty is still a thing, even in rich and advanced economies. Economists have been floating the idea of a wealth tax around in order to redistribute wealth. But in the Muslim world, there already exists a form of wealth tax called the Zakat. Zakat has two-pronged effects concerning investments and consumption. From a consumption point of view, the higher the amount of zakat received, the more he will spend to fulfill his basic needs and further increase his standards of living, thus increasing the aggregate consumption of an economy. This creates a ripple effect within the economy, as zakat recipients have a higher tendency to consume. In regards to investment, zakat encourages the wealthy to consume less and save or invest more. Such activities may also lead to economic growth through financing investments or by extending credit to those who want to start a business. Zakat also has the ability of creating a balanced growth cycle. The aforementioned ripple effect represents an increase of the supply of money in the economy, which in turn increases the demands of goods and services. In order to fulfill the demand, production facilities will naturally respond to demand and begin absorbing idle capital, which is investments from the wealthy. New jobs and employment opportunities are created to support the increase in production. New jobs that would also provide employment and extra income for the asnaf who are currently unemployed or either currently doing jobs that do not pay well. Extra income generated by a new pool of workers would create more demand for goods and services and thus create more investment opportunities that would again create more jobs. This growth cycle, which bases itself on balanced consumption, would contribute to balanced economic growth. You might be wondering why zakat is made as an obligation in Islam. In fact, zakat contributes a lot to poverty alleviation, not only in material means, but also in spirituality. Let's face it, giving out your hard-earned money might be easy for some, but it could be opposite for others. Thus, to ensure no one's left behind, either in spirituality or in wealth, Islam comes in with the zakat regulations. Zakat works as a minimum regulation in ensuring a good flow of capital across the societies. So what's the contribution of zakat across the globe? The pandemic of COVID-19 has hit us all. The virus spread across the globe, affecting global health and the global economy. Malaysia, take for example, has gone through a series of 7 lockdowns for a year and a half, from mid-March 2020 until the end of June 2021. Many activities were strictly prohibited, including business services such as restaurants and dining places, which had to shorten their operating hours. To sustain the economy during the lockdown is quite challenging for many business owners, eventually leading to mass unemployment and underemployment. In fact, Malaysia reached a new high of 5.3% of unemployment rate in May 2020. And behind the decimal points, there were 826,000 Malaysians who were jobless. However, with every hardship comes ease. During the challenging time, Zakat Collection Centre of the Federal Territory Islamic Religious Council, PPZ MEIWP, located near the capital, collected the highest amount of zakat collection in decades, with a total of 756 million ringgit. According to Mr. Abdul Hakim Amir Osman, 555 million had been distributed to Asnaf families through different initiatives to aid the Asnaf community with housing rent, education, health, companies and more. Besides, in easing the pain of the loss of family members due to COVID-19, PZS MUIS donated 1,000 ringgit in particular assistance to the families of dead COVID-19 patients. MUIP, on the other hand, set aside 1,000 ringgit for each COVID-19 patient. The Fakir and Miskin groups also received a 500 ringgit for monthly allowances, with 9,000 families benefited from the zakat collection. Students studying locally and overseas also received the benefits when cash, food allowances, returning flight tickets, masks, gloves, sanitizers are provided through zakat collections.
And the similarity between these two noble acts in Islam are:
they alleviate poverty,
Well,
and your spirituality.
which align with SDG 1, Zero Poverty, SDG 3, Good Health and Well-being, and SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities.
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله عليه صلاة الله وآله والأحبة لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله عليه صلاة الله وآله والأحبة Shine your mercy like the sun and be gracious as the earth. Let your kindness come like rain that cares not whom it falls upon. And let ocean deep your wisdom be, your heart a lantern spreading peace. Give yourself in love of him, be like Al-Habib.